The global hospitality sector employs about 10% of the worldwide workforce. Every year, this logistical engine processes over 1.5 billion travelers. This exponential growth is highly concentrated. Markets in Southeast Asia have surged, with Macau establishing itself as the highest-density hospitality center on Earth. Processing the sheer density of human movement requires immense daily coordination. Millions of distinct concurrent interactions happen simultaneously across global transit hubs. This volume outpaces the labor supply. The industry is facing a severe structural shortage of both talented management and the qualified frontline staff required to maintain operations. Scaling a hospitality empire requires a different architecture than scaling a tech or manufacturing firm. You cannot simply build more servers or assembly lines. You have to scale human capital. Traditional manufacturing relies on a sequential process. Parts are assembled, inspected for quality, and then shipped to a consumer. If a physical defect occurs, it is caught before it leaves the factory floor. This illustrates the structural difference of hospitality. Services are simultaneously produced and consumed in an instantaneous exchange between provider and consumer. Quality control is entirely subjective, determined by variables like satisfaction, trust, and empathy flowing between nodes. This creates an inherent operational vulnerability. Standardizing human emotion and interpersonal warmth across millions of daily interactions is impossible using traditional industrial efficiency methods. Achieving consistent service quality at this scale is an advanced systems engineering problem. Relying on simply hiring friendly individuals is mathematically insufficient to sustain global operations. To engineer this system, organizations first have to quantify a subjective human experience. We need an empirical baseline for what actually constitutes service quality. This radar chart maps the 5 dimensions of perceived service quality, developed by Parasaraman and colleagues: reliability, responsiveness, assurance, empathy, and tangibles. Performing dependably and providing prompt service cover reliability and responsiveness. These are the baseline minimums for any transaction. Assurance and empathy are the advanced psychological outputs. They require the employee to possess the knowledge to inspire trust and the capacity to provide individualized, caring attention. Generating all these dimensions consistently, shift after shift, requires immense cognitive and emotional effort from frontline workers. Without structural support, this constant demand accelerates systemic burnout. Researchers define this cognitive cost as emotional labor. It is the psychological effort required to manage and express specific emotions to fit an organization's occupational display rules. Employees are often required to project constant positivity, even when confronted with difficult circumstances. This creates an emotional dissonance, a sharp discrepancy between what the worker actually feels and what they are forced to display. This chart shows the resulting internal friction. Path A is surface acting, where employees simply fake the required emotions or suppress negative feelings to comply with the rules. Surface acting is highly damaging over time. Data directly correlates it with elevated rates of depression, higher absenteeism, and a strong intent to quit among hospitality workers. Path B is deep acting. Here, employees try to actively internalize and genuinely feel the required positive emotions. This pathway correlates strongly with high service performance and customer retention, while bypassing the burnout associated with faking. This emotional labor is complicated by internal demographic variables, specifically generational cohorts, which carry different baseline expectations for their work environments. Empirical data shows that millennials, who make up a massive portion of the current frontline workforce, report significantly lower baseline work engagement and the highest turnover intentions compared to baby boomers or Generation X. Relying on the natural emotional endurance of a demographically fragmented workforce to carry this psychological load is mathematically doomed. It guarantees a high turnover loop. Emotional labor is further compounded by daily hindrance stressors. Frontline workers routinely absorb extreme customer incivility, while unpredictable 24/7 shift patterns create persistent work-family conflict. But the friction extends far beyond the hotel lobby. At the geopolitical level, the hospitality sector functions as a sponge that absorbs global shocks instantly. Sudden political instability in prime tourist destinations immediately threatens systems. Events like the attempted military coup in Turkey turn stable markets into unpredictable crisis zones overnight. The economic fallout is immediate. Tourism drops drastically, wiping out billions of dollars in revenue and triggering catastrophic job losses across major resort regions like Antalya. Targeted terrorism specifically weaponizes the openness of these venues. High-impact attacks on openly accessible targets, like the Taj Mahal Palace in Mumbai, spike threat levels globally. Consider the psychological toll on the workers. They must continue to maintain deep acting and project empathy in environments that have been violently transformed from safe leisure spaces into high-risk targets. This stress radiates upward. Expatriate managers deployed to these zones suffer degraded job performance, driven by constant threat-level anxieties, compromised living conditions, and intense spouse and family conflict. These compounding layers of stress, ranging from daily customer incivility to sudden geopolitical collapse, guarantee systemic failure. The system will collapse unless an organizational buffer is actively engineered to protect it. The required buffers exist. They are empirically validated human resource management protocols, classified as high-performance work practices. This chart diagrams the first interventions. Selective staffing and rigorous onboarding protocols act as an initial filter, aligning employee expectations and socializing new hires in their first 90 days to reduce immediate turnover. Organizations then deploy specific structural service rewards, tying clear bonuses and formal recognition strictly to pro-social behaviors incentivizes the effort required for deep acting. These policies generate a supportive service climate. This organizational shield actively mitigates the effects of customer incivility and physically severs the pathway connecting surface acting to burnout. When top management commits visibly to service quality, it reinforces internal branding. This fulfills the employee's psychological contract, equipping them with the brand knowledge needed to perform with confidence. Integrating targeted workplace fun and offering flexible shift scheduling act as direct countermeasures to exhaustion and the persistent strain of work-family conflict. High-performance work practices shift the burden of service quality. It stops relying entirely on the individual employee's willpower, placing the load instead on the organization's structural design. The implementation of these practices generates a highly specific, measurable psychological output in the workforce, known as psychological capital. Psychological capital, or PsyCap, is a positive state defined by 4 rigorous dimensions: self-efficacy, optimism, hope, and resilience. As an empirical shield, PsyCap actively buffers the negative relationship between hindrance stressors and burnout, absorbing the impact before it can degrade performance. Longitudinal data confirms that building PsyCap directly increases an employee's worth engagement, job satisfaction, and effective commitment to the organization. Psychological capital is not an innate personality trait you simply hope to hire. It is a measurable operational asset grown and maintained through deliberate human resource investments. This chart illustrates the complete architectural model connecting human inputs to financial outputs, commonly referred to as the service profit chain. Without engineered support, intense emotional labor leads directly to surface acting. This creates a high burnout environment, resulting in rapid turnover and inevitable financial decay. Conversely, deploying high-performance work practices builds psychological capital. This overrides the friction, fueling the deep acting required to trigger customer loyalty, which secures a durable competitive advantage. It presents a strict paradox. Because human interactions are intangible and highly subjective, they require the most rigorous empirical systems engineering to replicate consistently. The hospitality industry's historically negative reputation regarding high turnover and low morale is not an inevitability of the work itself. It is a mathematical symptom of organizations failing to implement this architecture. Many organizations still view human resources as an administrative department dedicated to payroll and legal compliance. In hospitality, human resources is the primary production line. Because the workers literally embody the product and project the brand during every transaction, their psychological management is identical to quality control. Organizations that capitalize on workforce diversity, execute strategic onboarding, and aggressively fund psychological capital development secure dominant financial gains over their competitors. In a sector where the entire product is a fleeting human interaction, optimizing human psychology is the only sustainable business strategy.